We're here to break down the Monday NBA slate. As you guys come in, do me a big favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's how we keep the content free around here. It really does help us grow the channel, and it's no cost to you, and it only takes a couple of seconds. So just a couple clicks of the button, and we do appreciate that a whole bunch. Also, if you have any comments about any of my bets or any questions, let me know below in the comment section. Now, also, we've got our Discord channel. If you guys want free access to that for 1 week, click on the link below. And there's certain value I can provide in the Discord that I can't quite do in the same way on YouTube. So, for instance, yesterday, there was some head-to-head player props on DraftKings that were just priced pretty incorrectly, where Julius Randle was close to a pick'em to have less turnovers against both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, which didn't line up with their prop odds in terms of just the regular turnover props on DraftKings. So I placed a couple of bets there on Julius Randle to have less turnovers than Darius Garland, and also to have less turnovers than Donovan Mitchell. Both those won. So stuff like that where it pops up, where I notice there's a pricing error or any kind of breaking news happens, I add everybody in the Discord channel, tell you guys what to bet, and it's just been a good community that we're building over there. So if you guys want access to that, 1 week for free, no risk to you at all by clicking on the link below. Let's talk about Monday, and these are my favorite bets for the NBA slate. To start us off here, I have a plus money bet that is on Pascal Siakam for over 8.5 rebounds. Siakam's been a monster this year for the Raptors. He's back from injury, and it doesn't look like we have any kind of minutes restrictions to worry about when it comes to him. Now, that's generally the case when it comes to Nick Nurse players, is he likes to run all his top guys into the ground during the regular season. So Siakam, maybe there was some concerns when he first came back from the injury that he could play a couple less minutes. Only played 30 in his first game back, but we've seen him play as many as 34, and last game he actually played 31 despite the game being a blowout. So he was actually on pace to play like 36 to 38 minutes last game, had that game been more competitive. But the Raptors won pretty big over the Magic in that game and won by double digits. Now, if you look at the numbers overall for Siakam this year, he's averaging 8.9 rebounds per game, which on the surface makes you think that 8.5 rebounds when the over is plus money, that means that there is some value. But then also, I talked about the minutes for Pascal Siakam. Now, I think that they are going to be pretty significant today for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's just kind of Nick Nurse's MO in general. But also, the Raptors are in a pretty important game against the Boston Celtics. As far as regular season games, it's fairly high leverage. So we have Siakam playing a bunch of minutes today over at Odd Chopper. As a result, we have him projected for 9.6 rebounds, which makes for a pretty good over 8.5 rebound bet, particularly when that's plus money on the over. We have the over winning more often than not. So my first bet of the day, Pascal Siakam over 8.5 rebounds at plus money. If you guys want to know an easy way to make $150 tonight, sign up at DraftKings Sportsbook by clicking on our link, because when you place a $5 money line bet, it pays out $150 as long as your team wins. And I wouldn't recommend betting any game that you think is going to be close or anything like that. Here's what I think you should do, because this bet pays out $150 on any money line. I went and found the biggest favorite on all of DK Sportsbook for you tonight, and that's the San Diego State college basketball team. They're a minus 2,100 favorite on the money line. So bet $5 on that minus 2,100, and when San Diego State wins, DK Sportsbook is paying you $150. So take advantage of this offer, but make sure to click on the link below when you sign up at DK Sportsbook, because you're going to need that link to get your $150 when San Diego State wins. The next bet I have is under 3.5 assists for Mikal Bridges, and it's a pretty big number for a guy who's just not a prolific passer. He averages right around 3 assists per game.
he's an alien. He's a maniac. He's probably listening to his own music. Oh. Okay, welcome in. It's a Monday, which means we've got Monday Night Football. And look, I know, I want to get to the game right away. I'm not going to introduce. I'm not going to do anything. Like, Geoff is so psyched up and ready and jacked up for Saints Bucks all the way down in Tampa Bay. Man, I don't even, Hero Tour aside, Victor Hovland, big weekend, and you and the garage door saga, everything that happened, you are so excited to attack this game, Monday Night Football on No House Advantage. Be honest.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, come on. Andy Dalton on the slate. How can you not get excited? How can
This is your guy.
For Red Rocket. That's right. It's redemption time. No,
Right.
I'm not backing Andy Dalton. Fuck that guy.
See, I was hoping because this would be the redemption tour here. Man, we'll look at No House Advantage. We have a ton on Stokastic. We'll match your first deposit. Just jumping on there. I know a lot of people kind of come in here. Mike's producing, hanging with us as well. So the three of us with you for the next 30, the NBA, the next 30 after that. So a full hour of No House Advantage. It's free, the optimal lineups and everything on there. I'm not going to go deep into the side here because I'm with you. Like, you're probably on Tampa or you're just not on a side for the most part, just because of Andy Dalton and anything along those lines. But what I am interested in is how you see this thing playing out from a total standpoint, because that I think will correlate into how we attack this on NHA from an individual standpoint.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we're kind of on the same page. I mean, I think a plus, now it's got to 3.5. I don't know if you necessarily need to go to your way to take the Bucks either. If you got them at 3, I think that's a completely fine bet. I'm not going to get in the trap with Andy Dalton and take just because it's 3.5 now, go on the other side. But I do think that there's some value on the under. 41, I ideally wanted this 41.5, but Saints defense play a little bit better. We've seen these two teams play a lot. There's been some passing outputs, but those were defense. Those were, Drew Brees, Tom Brady at his peak. This is a different era. This is the Saints, with Andy Dalton. This is the Bucks with an aging Tom Brady. Well, I mean, he's been aging for a while. Just not playing as good, and their offense just isn't as good. So I think there's some value on the under. I kind of like the unders in this game, to be honest. I think there's a couple different ways you can tack it as well. And we have some history with some players here, like guys like Kamara, Evans. They just do really poorly in these matchups against these teams. So I think there's some trends we can follow there too.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just, if it's an under, you're talking about 40 and a half, 41, maybe 41 and a half, depending on where and how this opened to move. It's not anything more than that range. So we're not talking about going under 51 and a half here, where you can still slide in a 48 total game and guys look pretty good from a statistical standpoint. Chances are that even if it flirts with going over, it's probably going to be long, drawn out, methodical as far as the game is concerned. And look, scoring is scoring. Could be an X play here or there, but the game itself is probably not going to feel like you're on the edge of your seat, is my point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay. I mean, statistically wise, I mean, I think a lot of people will be looking at it like that, but I mean, you can make it contrarian. We can make contrarian plays too here and make contrarian lineups by going, stacking some overs, but I don't know, man. I mean, Tom Brady, like I almost wonder how chalky the under is even going to be in this game. Like, I think there's some obvious lines that we're going to pick out here, but I think overall it might not be, like to take a real under stance. I still think you'll be able to create some pretty unique lineups on No House. So
yeah, I'm with you, man. You mentioned Brady here. He's probably a good place to start just because he's going to be the most popular name at the very least across the board. No knock on your guy, the Red Rocket here, but I imagine people will gravitate to Brady. The, passing touchdowns, passing yards, depending on where you look at it, I'm not sure if you think there's an angle here that stands out or if it's just a matter of projections to just maybe something that you think you could counter to where the field may be going.
I mean, I think that one of our strongest plays that we have, and it's projecting strong in the optimal lineups, like as a high point play, like a 6-point play, is Tom Brady under 2.5 passing touchdowns. Again, like the Saints defense, their passing defense was kind of bad at the start of the year, but it's still a team that, I mean, they haven't allowed more than 2 passing touchdowns since week 6, and that was against Joe Burrow. So it's not like guys have been coming in and lighting this defense up a late.
Right.
And I mean, they faced San Francisco. I mean, Lamar Jackson was on the slate. Derek Carr, they actually played really well against. So, they've been pretty good over the last 5 weeks. And that's kind of what we see from the Saints usually too. Their defense usually gets better as the year goes on. So yeah, I like that one, man. I mean, I think that a lot of people will probably gravitate towards it because it's a big output and Brady's just been, he just hasn't been that good this year. So it's probably going to be a popular one. Again, if you're looking to be
ridiculous, right?
Yeah. I mean, asking for 3 passing touchdowns from Brady this year that's asking a lot, man. So ultra contrarian play would be to go over here. You really get leverage on the field, but man, that's a big ask. If you're going to play the Brady over 3 passing touchdowns, you might as well just go for it all and just play for a 30-25 game kind of thing. And, take Kamara overs on the other side. So that's, this prop with Brady, I think it's fine to just, put it high up and we have it projected really strongly. But it's probably going to be one where it's very polarizing, where almost everyone on the field is going to be on the under.
It's very true. And like you mentioned, the numbers, everything, the history here with the Saints alone, the numbers that he's had on primetime games, night games since he's been down in Tampa Bay, it would all scream to going under that. And look, I think it's one thing if you would think the projections are 60% or 58% on a play that you can make an argument the majority of the field, whatever that defines as, would be heading that way. But when you're this high on a 2-5, I don't even know. You have to do it if you're playing multiple lineups, but if you're just playing 1 or 2, I don't even know if the risk is there to go contrarian on this specific prop, I guess is my point.
Yeah, no, that's the perfect way to put it. I agree. If you're making 2 lineups, I just don't think that's the one to do it. Now, if you're really trying to stack in Max Ender, yeah, absolutely. You need to get some leverage lineups where if that outcome comes, you're slightly overweight the field, at least on the over part, because then that's just a huge opportunity. Right. So, it's all about your risk variance here. I mean, if you have 2 lineups and you're just you know what, I don't give a shit. I'm playing for it all. I want to create a high variance lineup. Go over Tom Brady, 2 passing touchdowns. I don't think anyone's going to have the over. So like I said, very polarizing, interesting line we got. I was not expecting to get 2.5, but that's the beauty of no else advantage. And it creates really interesting strategy spots for the big contest.
All right, man. So let's keep it moving here. We have a couple of others that pop up strong, especially if you look at, optimal that are slotting into that 7 point. And a lot of these are going to be small, like Cade Otton, for example, seems to be a heavy fade. Rachaad White's another one. And this would all, I imagine, because you talked about Mike Evans and just the history that he's had struggling here. I would think that looking at Rachaad White, especially from the rushing yards and Cade Otton receiving yards, maybe it's the smaller market stuff that jumps out that would be a better play here, as opposed to Godwin or Evans, I guess.
Yeah, no. And again, Evans has a big number Godwin has a big target number as well. But I mean, again, Godwin has been really good the last few weeks. Target shares going up. And I agree. I think you're going to get lower ownership on these smaller market props. And Cade Otton's really interesting because Cameron Brate, it looks like he's going to play, but he's also not 100% to play, and he's been questionable. So, if you're looking at these props with White and Otton, they're both kind of dependent on other players. I mean, Leonard Fournette looks like he's for sure going to play. Yep. He's practiced in full. He's still listed as questionable, but if Fournette comes back, I feel much better about going with the projections here and going under Rachaad White. And the thing about White is I'm not sure how many people are necessarily going to I don't think it'll be as popular and under as Brady, as the Brady prop we just talked about. I think people see Rachaad White playing more and they'll say, oh, you know what? Fournette, screw him. I'll take the over on White. They're going to be ahead, but it's still a tough spot. I mean, you've got Fournette. He's the early down back. White's been more of the pass catching guy. And yeah, maybe White comes in and gets 70 yards on 12 carries, but man, you're asking for a lot. So I feel good about the under there. The Otton one is interesting because
right.
his target share, his routes went down with Cameron Brate the last couple of weeks, but Brate is like, he's banged up. Like he's questionable. He's legit questionable. And I think he's going to play, but I could take a contrarian stance on Eytan and go over there. I mean, it wouldn't be a high point play for me, but this is a player he was pretty integral for a few weeks there for Tampa Bay. I get that Brate's back, but it's not like Cameron Brate. It's not like we're talking about an elite tight end in Cameron Brate. He's just, a veteran guy who's hanging around. So Eytan's interesting. Maybe you go over on the receiving yards. You hope to get that one big play. You can go with the projections here too. I mean, we talked about it off the top. You can just take unders across the board here. I think that's fine as well. But Eytan is more of a lower point play for me if you're gonna take the over there.
Is there anything from? Well, I guess you're right. Like as far as a low point play from a contrarian standpoint, or just in general. I think in general, because I just don't trust the Cameron Brate being out kind of thing. Got it. Okay.
So I think in general, like I know we're projecting Cade Eytan as like a very strong under target, but I would feel better with going White on the under. I think that we know more what's going to happen. Fournette's going to get a lot of work. White, I think, will be active, but it'll be more as a pass catcher.
Yeah. So I'm looking at where overs start to pop up, where we have strong plays, from an optimal standpoint. Julio Jones receptions is going to be one that sticks out, I think, really right away, maybe more so at the top here. Not top, but like somewhat top.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't mind this one. I mean, Julio's back. The last 4 weeks, he's gotten 4 more targets. He's played the Saints a lot. I mean, you got Godwin out there. Mike Evans wrecking some havoc. I think Julio could be an integral part of this game plan for Tampa Bay, to be honest. I really don't hate that one at all. I'm actually almost surprised we don't have it projected a little bit higher.
Yeah, 1.5 is low, right?
Yeah, like at 1.5. It's projecting as more of like it's projecting as like a midpoint play, like a 4-point play for us. So that's fine. But you want to put that a little bit higher and really go to town on it, or maybe you want to fade the field in another like highly owned prop and stay on the Julio prop. I'd be fine with using that pretty high up. I think he'll probably get there. He's been seeing the field. He's healthy as Julio Jones could be at this point in his career. And like I said, I think that, that the Saints always do a pretty good job of taking away Mike Evans, who I actually think is a very good fade candidate. Julio's snaps gone up the last couple weeks. Yeah, we have this projected as a solid over for a reason.
All right. Anything? I was just trying to see if we had anything else projected. I mean, Jones. All right. So we have a couple here that jump out. And Andy Dalton, let's get the easy one out of the way here. Andy Dalton, over a half interception.
Yeah.
And look, I'm surprised that both quarterbacks actually aren't popping up. Brady is still a half interception, right? He's be a half.
Yep.
Yeah. So I actually think, and look, there's some numbers and everything that would support what we're talking about here, but I'm actually surprised that Brady, it's not registering a little bit higher, but for Andy Dalton, at least, he's popping up at least somewhat optimal here in that 5 to 4 range as far as going over and basically throwing a pick.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I'm sure a lot of people are going to do this. I mean, and again, it's funny because the quarterback props here, I think you'll get a lot of popularity on going under on Brady and going over on the Andy Dalton interception. I'm not going to stick up for Andy Dalton or like try and convince you to like that the Saints are somehow going to win this game, but he hasn't thrown an interception the last 2 games. He's been okay. He's been as good as you would expect. I still kind of like the over here. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily want to fade this. I mean, I think I'd probably rather, if you're asking me which one I'd rather be contrarian on, the Andy Dalton under interceptions or Tom Brady under
interception
over passing touchdowns, I guess I would probably rather go Andy Dalton under interceptions, but it's pretty thin. I think it's a very good spot for Tampa Bay Bucks to grab an interception on them late. They've got a solid defense as well. They just don't allow Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara's also just looked bad the last few weeks. Like he's not running the ball with much. So I don't know how the Saints are going to run the ball here, which just means more Andy Dalton dropbacks. So you got to feel pretty good about the Andy Dalton interception. It's not going to be a surprise. You're not going to get over on the field or anything, but It's one of those props where if you're just playing kind of for a low scoring game, defenses dominate, and you mix it in, that should be a part of your lineup.
Yeah, I love that call. Really, when you're talking about that, just the difference between the two and which one you would rather be more contrarian on. We have a bunch of unders. I don't want to overstep anything. We mentioned Eytan, Rachaad White, Chris Godwin, 80.5. You touched on that just being a big number. So that's one that we're much higher on Stokastic when it comes to being up. That's like a 6-point optimal play for Godwin going under that number. Evans, though, is not as high as I thought. Now, 67.5, but I thought he's popping up like in that 4-3 range. I thought he would be more in like that 5-4, maybe even that 6 with Godwin.
Yeah, I think the only reason he's not is because like we have so many other strong plays, like with White and Tom Brady, and even like the Andy Dalton interception prop, and even like Cade Otton. So I think it's a pretty strong underplay, but and I do like the Mike Evans under. I mean, you look at the last 8 times he's played the Saints, he's gone over 67 yards once, and he had 69 yards. Marshawn Lattimore he just lives in his head rent free. Like I don't know why, but they do a really good job of Mike Evans on the outside. They always do. Maybe this is the week it flips. I don't know, but I feel pretty good about that. Mike Evans also just, not really having the greatest season. So it's one I'd feel pretty good about as well. I'm not sure how people are going to look at that. Probably you're going to get a lot of unders on it too, but playing for the higher scoring game here. I mean, man, like, you're asking for a lot. Like you're going to get Evans and Godwin to go over their numbers, Brady to go over, like that's asking for a lot. So I think that, you pick and choose, I think you play for a lower scoring game. Even if, does that mean 45 points? Does that mean like 38 points?
Right.
In that range. And then you try and mix in like a contrarian over or two. That's probably the way I would play it. I would get a core set of plays here, maybe an Evans under, the Rachaad White under, the Brady under, and then I would try and mix in a couple, maybe contrarian overs plays. But I don't know if I'd play for the home run here and like the 30 to 28 kind of game, because it just feels like these props, even if we do get a shootout, like, Evans could go under. So just with his history against the Saints, Kamara could go under his too. So it's kind of a tough game to really get behind, like the kind of contrarian move. I think this is just one where you got to kind of eat your chalk and just pick your spots.
Awesome, man. All right. What else? Where else can we go here? A lot of these are just popping up routinely when it comes to building optimal. So it's a heavy rotation, right? Of Cade Otton, Rachaad White, Tom Brady under the passing TDs. We had a little sprinkle in there for a guy like Chris Godwin. Also, Andy Dalton, we referenced his passing touchdowns. Olave is a guy that we haven't really talked about. Maybe there's some interest there.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Olave tonight. I actually like Olave. Like, if I'm probably going to look at his alt lines, even maybe sprinkling a bet there. I think that, again, second in the league in air yards. He's proven he can just kind of go off against anyone, at least have the big yardage games. And, again, like the Saints are underdogs here. They're not going to be able to run the ball. I think you get some late game scenarios where you could just grab you a 20-yard catch, go over this easy, even if they shut them down for a part of the game. So good team target share, the 60.5. Again, we do have this projected as like a slight under, but honestly, that's one player where I think like not only going over on the yardage, but like putting 2 Chris Olaves, if you want to get contrarian, put both Olave overs in, play for the decent game. There's just so many scenarios where you don't need a shootout just for Olave to go over on these, because he's got the team target share. He's potentially going to benefit from garbage time, and he can just get there, in just natural game flow situations. So player I really like tonight, just in terms of that. I don't think his props are outlandish or anything. We're not asking him to get like 90 yards. He's just got to get 61. He's only got to get 5 receptions, not 6 or 7. I think that's a good player to like be bullish on. And again, if you use both, that'll really make, I think people might use one Olave over and maybe lower down. But if you put both in like your midpoint or something like that, that'll really give you a bit of a contrarian build. Then you won't have to eat so much chalk in your other picks too, right? So
that's a good point about balancing that out, right? As far as avoiding how much chalk you're eating elsewhere. Man, I'm looking as you're talking about that there with Olave. You referenced Kamara. I mean, 47.5. Do we talk about his rushing yards?
Not yet. It's
Okay.
really low. It seems
I
really
think
low,
that's
doesn't
why
it?
it's because it was so easy to overlook. But
Yeah.
you've referenced a couple of times over that he just and rightfully so, he struggles against this team, and he's been struggling all year.
Yeah. And it's just like, how many times has he even gone over this? I guess he had 47 2 weeks ago against the Rams. He had 96 against Vegas, 56 against Arizona. Then he had one more 90-yard game against Seattle. Every other game's been well under. I don't know, man. I just don't know where. Actually, I'm looking at his receiving yards. Just forget everything I just said. He's been terrible. Actually, his last 4 games as a rusher, he's gone well under this. So the last 4 or 5 games, he's been bad. The Tampa rush defense still pretty good, and he's just. I know I was doing some research on this game yesterday, and his record against Tampa, man, like they just shut him down. I don't know why. He's had some touchdown games where he's caught a couple touchdowns, but the yardage has been like, 30 yards, like 30 yards receiving, 30 yards rushing. I lean with the projections on this. And again, like I don't mind using this one. I think the nice thing about Kamara too is I don't think it'll be a super chalky prop. So let's say maybe you're in on Brady, but you wanted to leave like one of those other popular props out. Maybe you throw in Kamara under instead. And then, let's say Andy Dalton gets through the game without an interception. Everyone who used Dalton is busted, but maybe you use Kamara instead. So that's one I'd feel fairly good about. Again, I'm not going to go on the other side of it, I don't think, but I think the Kamara under makes a lot of sense.
What about that Fournette? We know that he's looking to play.
That was the other one I wanted to actually talk about.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I think it's fine to go over that. I mean, he's practicing full all week. I'm not sure why the projection for us, I actually thought we'd be over this. Like it's projecting as an under, right? Am I reading this wrong?
Yep. No, you're right.
So
that's a low number, man.
It's really low. And like, I get it. I mean, it's the Saints. They're, these two teams are built very similarly. They're still very good defensive lines, pretty good at stopping the run, but we're only asking for 34 yards here. And we've got, Fournette, he's still going to take a lot of the early down work. It's not like Rachaad White's going to keep him off the field here. Got a game flow where, Andy Dalton's probably going to throw a pick at some point. We've already talked about probably just give the Bucs a lead late in the game. I think Fournette is still the back you're going to see salting out the game. So I don't really have a reason to think that this is like a bad number to take an over on. I don't know how people are going to look at this though. And again, like with Rachaad White back, will people go over Fournette and then take the under on White, or will they just stay away from Fournette? I mean, I think if you're going to take the under on Rachaad White, like going over on Fournette as well is fine. I still think Fournette gets more carries than
that's what I was just trying to think in my head as I was scouring the board here, how that doesn't hit. But again, to be fair, I mean, this is a low projection that we have on site that is down there for like a 1-point optimal play.
And look, like, I think that probably part of what's working into our projection is that like Fournette's questionable, but it's kind of like a joke questionable. Like he's practiced in full all week. I mean, like he's going to play. It's not really a question. They just have him listed as questionable. It's kind of like a Patriots thing where like half the team is questionable, but
right.
Like, maybe there's like actually one actual questionable player and everyone else is fine. So I think Fournette is fine. I think going over there is fine. I think that some people might be a little bit skeptical and stay off that. So another prop I don't mind mixing in, and kind of like the Olave one. Yeah, you're going against the projection a bit, but you should get lower ownership on it.
You would think. Absolutely, brother. Anything else you want to get out here on the way out?
No, I mean, those running back props are interesting. I think you can kind of play them how you want. I mean, if you wanted to be, maybe you get some bad news, maybe we get some bad news before kickoff on Fournette, like he's highly questioned, like he actually is, or he's injured, or it's going to be like Rachaad White. Maybe you take, if it depends how you're approaching this. You're playing a lot of lineups, being contrarian and going over on White and under on Fournette is going to be very, very contrarian. So that's one way to look at it. But I think we touched on all the receivers. Mentioned that Julio over, I don't mind. I'd probably be okay just taking like unders on Brady and like almost all the receivers though, other than Julio, and really just pounding the unders in this game. I think we're just going to get probably a lower scoring defensive game where, Tampa's running out the clock late and Andy Dalton probably throws a pick in the last play of the game or something like that.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, stay tuned for the fellas on the NBA side. Geoff, appreciate it, man. I know you've got Pete with you on Thursday. I'll be back with you on Friday as we look at week 14 now. My goodness. We have one more game, though, to close the door, and that's tonight. So we appreciate you all rolling with us. A reminder, of course, hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, you freeloaders. Subscribe if you haven't already. What are you doing? And yes, we will match your first deposit up to $50 on No House Advantage. All you need to do, download the app, use that code, and all Stokastic, and you know the drill. All right, man. Let's cash some tickets tonight. What do you say?
Yeah, sounds good. Have a good one, guys.